Good afternoon and welcome to NCIA's Industry Essentials Educational Webinar Series, our premier digital educational platform featuring a variety of interactive programs to provide you timely, engaging, and essential education when and where you need it most. My name is Brian Gilbert, the Deputy Director of Events here at NCIA. As always, I'm very excited to welcome you all to another edition of our NCIA Committee Insights series today, being presented by the Cannabis Cultivation Committee. Before we get started, a thank you and final note to our guests who are joining us for the live stream on our Facebook page as well. If you're an active NCIA member, follow that short link in our description to log into your account and join the conversation. If you're not an active NCIA member, follow the Join Now link to activate your membership or the Register Now link to purchase a discounted pass so you don't miss out on the interactive elements of today's program. Now, let's get this show on the road. As we all know, energy consumption is one of the largest costs for a licensed cannabis cultivation. And during this webinar, we'll have industry experts from NCIA's Cannabis Cultivation Committee share what cultivations are doing to lessen energy consumption and the potential need for standards and regulations to help promote greener cannabis cultivations. I know our audience is eager to dive into today's information, and our panel is ready to start the conversation, so let's not waste any more time. To kick things off, I'd like to welcome our special guest host for today's session, Steve Mackey, the Senior Vice President at Yobi, to the virtual stage to introduce our packed panel of cannabis cultivation experts. You can activate your video feed and take it away from here, Steve.
Hi, welcome everybody and happy St. Patrick's Day. Again, I'm Steve Mackey. I'm an entrepreneur and have been in the cannabis industry for 7 years now. At Yobi, we help licensed cannabis operators simplify sales, inventory, compliance, and business intelligence so they can focus on their core objectives. I'm super excited to have a great selection of panelists for you guys today. And so we'll go ahead and start our question and answer series with an introductory question to all of our panelists, how long they've been in the cannabis industry, and what is their particular interest in energy consumption. So to kick this off, let's bring on Adrian Geovenco. He is founder and CEO of Transpiration Solutions. Hello, Adrian.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. It's great to see everybody. My name is Adrian Geovenco. Our company is called Transpiration Solutions. I've been a cannabis enthusiast really since I learned about the medicinal benefits of it as a means of switching over from any sort of other types of pain medications and things, and really came home to roost when my father was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer about 6 years ago, and didn't really have a lot of options. And I'm really interested in pushing forward and helping the industry from a medical standpoint from that perspective. There's lots of things I think that could have been done differently or better, and it would have been fantastic. Our company is focused on, we've been involved in the business for 8 or 9 years, and we're focused on integrated plant-centric HVAC/D systems for environmental control inside of these spaces. So we're focused on 24-hour VPD control, really from seed to sale, as a means of helping our clients make more money and be more profitable in what they do.
Well, that's great, Adrian. I think improving everybody's bottom line is a prime goal for everybody in this industry. Next, we have Ash Ganley from GrowRay. Welcome, Ash, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in energy.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve, and everybody on the panel. My name is Ash Ganley. I'm the CEO and co-founder of GrowRay Technologies and a co-founder and board member of a boutique multi-state vertically integrated cannabis company, Nobo, based here in Colorado with operations in Michigan and Colorado. GrowRay Technologies develops technology beginning with patented LED solutions and really acts as kind of a conduit between PhD level academic research and the practicalities of cannabis production, which is to this point been kind of poorly understood. So the two companies work synergistically together as an operator and cultivator and then a technology and solutions company to really integrate understand how to grow for low cost of productions, low KW footprint, take chances on new technologies with a real incubatorial environment to do proof of concept testing, et cetera, et cetera. We're always trying to learn what works and what doesn't in terms of integrating new tech into our cultivation facilities. And we run a kind of a constant program to identify new, young, up-and-coming horticulture technology companies and give them an opportunity to do proof of concept testing in our grows to potentially develop their technologies in an integrated platform kind of way. So low KW use in cannabis is the driving factor for both how we cultivate and how we go about technologies. And we're kind of learning constantly on a daily basis. So that's my background. And hopefully I can shed some light on some things today and be of use.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's great. You know, as entrepreneurs, it's always great to have some of those incubation settings to where you can really kind of trial and error some things. So that's fantastic. Next we have Josh Holleb from Ceres Greenhouse Solutions.
Hello, everybody. Ash, I like how the lighting guy, you said shed some light on the conversation. That was good.
You can't escape the puns.
As the greenhouse guy, I hope to shed some light on it as well. I'm Josh, co-founder of Ceres Greenhouse Solutions. We design high efficiency buildings, high efficiency HVAC/D systems, smart controls. Our goals, integration of all the things into highlight, predominantly sunlit environments. My background, I was a net zero home builder. I was building houses that created more power than they needed when the housing market crashed, and also when the weed market turned on in Colorado. And so I began building out people's warehouses. I owned a dispensary in Boulder, Colorado, very early with an indoor grow. Learned cultivating in a warehouse, and quickly realized that was not that enjoyable. And so we've been now doing the greenhouse thing for 8 years, and just pushing the limits of what we can do with greenhouses and what people think we can do with greenhouses. And we see, I'll just say, greenhouse is a funny word, and so we don't always use it, but we're seeing super high quality, low energy inputs. It is there, there are ways to reduce cost and increase quality and efficiency.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I'm looking forward to hearing some responses from some of our questions that we've got lined up today. Next, we have Noni Goldman. She is a COO for an operation up in the Massachusetts area. Welcome, Noni, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, so my name is Noni Goldman. I'm the COO of the Hubcraft. We are provisionally licensed for cultivation, manufacturing, and adult use dispensary in Fitchburg, Clinton, and Holyoke, Massachusetts. I've been in commercial cultivation of cannabis since about 2016, and my interest in this panel specifically is as a license holder, working towards regulations, obviously, but also making these rules not so restrictive to small businesses and entrepreneurs.
Right. Yeah. Well, and just regularly, Massachusetts has quite a bit of regulation around this as well. So it's going to be interesting to hear your inputs from that perspective. Next, we have Ryan Disney from the Great Midwest, a botanist who likes to sit at the Center of Agriculture and Industry. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Disney. I'm a botanist at Red Arrow Farm. We're a large outdoor grower in Southwest Michigan. My background, I'm a botanist by training, and I did my master's work at the Great Lakes Bioenergy Research Center, which is a collaboration between Michigan State and, University of Wisconsin. So that's sort of how I got into energy and interested in sort of how sort of botany and ecology interact with industry. I got into the cannabis industry about 2014. I've been doing consulting in a wide variety of fields up until that point. And a friend of a friend knew some folks that were going after the licenses when Illinois did their rollout of their medical program. So I worked on one of those programs. We were awarded one of the 2 licenses for the city of Chicago. The gentleman that they hired to run that a couple years later kind of shot me an email out of the blue saying, "Hey, I know you're from Michigan. We're starting this new farm. Are you interested?" And here I am.
Very good. Well, this is getting exciting for the panelists. Last but not least, we have Sonny Antonio from Sunshine Design, who brings a wealth of power experience from California. Sonny, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, welcome. I'm the one who feels kind of honored to be on this panel with so many of you guys and all this background and knowledge about cannabis. But my background is power. I started at the age of 19 working for PG&E, the major power company in California, and then after digging ditches and working on a crew, I actually got into the management portion. And after 24 and a half years, PG&E in the state of California, power companies were falling too far behind the design stuff. So applicant design was created. I walked away after 24 and a half years and created my own design company. So we design electric, gas, power, coordinate phone and cable. Got involved in the cannabis about 7 years ago. And my son, who works for me, said, "Hey, there's these guys having a problem in Oakland with a building and they need power and they're looking for you." So I drove down there and I said, "What are you guys doing in this big building in Oakland?" And they go, "We're doing cannabis." I said, "What the hell are you guys talking about?" I had no idea what these guys were doing. And so unfortunately, they did not have the power source they needed. So that was our first job. And about 60 jobs later, all we're doing is we are trying to help them make sure that they make the right decisions. Power, electric, phone, cable, gas, and doing feasibility studies to make sure that you guys are not out there buying land and buying power and buying buildings. And if we're going, "Oh shit, we haven't got power," which happens a lot. We're doing a lot of projects up at Humboldt right now, getting those guys on the grid who have not been on the grid. So I'm happy to be a part of this. So thank you very much.
Well, very good. Well, thanks, Sonny. Yeah, and I'm super excited. This is a subject that's always been of interest to me, how we can lower energy usage consumption and still provide the world with the plant that they want. So we'll go ahead and kick off some questions here. Just as a general background in terms of a 30,000-foot overview, Adrian, what would you say the state of energy consumption is at right now in commercial cannabis?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we all know, and as Sonny's just shared, particularly, it's a really energy intensive process. From our perspective, and I'll let Ash talk some specifically in lighting and Josh as well. But the HVAC-D portion of it, of the environmental control, can be 50% or more of the power requirements in most projects. And so, as far as looking at the landscape, there's really no current standard for really even for almost sizing systems and things. There's a lot of different ways that organizations are doing it. And I know that folks like ASHRAE, who are, American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Engineers, like putting out standards. And it's a group I've been involved with for years. In the HVAC world, they're just really getting involved in it now. Asabi is looking at it as well. It's being looked at from the utilities because obviously it's a pinch point on that side. So there's really not great standardization and even for the manufacturers, as far as looking at different types of systems and baselining, things like that. But I mean, back to the actual energy consumption of it, we see that there are ways to provide better control and ultimately better plant response. And then, down the road connected to that is better profitability for these companies with systems that are actually more efficient. And so it's one of those really kind of sweet opportunities to take advantage of the technology that's there with integrated type systems to be able to help make these facilities more efficient, use less power, but also make them more productive and profitable.
Yeah, I would chime in and say the cannabis industry, as it's turned on, I've been in Colorado since it began. We're working off some legacy information that's not necessarily science-based. It's something that worked and prices were high. And so people just committed to what was working and stuck with it. And even to this day, not that much research has been done. A lot of state universities can't do it. It's just starting to turn on now. One of our main focuses is data gathering as we build out facilities to learn more. The whole HPS to LED conversation, while most people are going towards LEDs now, what we're seeing, I think, is these legacy grows are starting to become truly outdated. Single level plant with HPS lighting is really not a recipe for success any longer. I think we can grow better now. We can definitely grow more efficiently. I mean, we see indoor grows growing for 30 cents a gram utility costs. We're able to do it in the greenhouses for around 2 cents a gram. That has to do with more efficiency in lighting, with dimmable LEDs, better HVAC systems, better DHU systems, smart controls, and higher yields. So the plants are also producing more, which brings down our cost per gram as well.
Yeah, those are great points. And I think what you mentioned, Josh, about just the lack of having an academic understanding, we're just now kind of starting to see studies like the one that just came out from Colorado State to estimate a carbon footprint of cultivation so that we can measure where we are now and analyze that and make improvements along the way. Did anybody else want to talk about a general state of consumption of energy for cannabis, or should we move on?
I do want to highlight that point that Josh made about sort of the legacy of prohibition. And that goes even more so for the plants. We're all growing plants that were developed for somebody's basement, or their lineage. It has all these bottlenecks where pest and disease resistance and resource efficiency just weren't in the consideration set at all. And by and large, the industry is still using breeding techniques that every other crop system abandoned 70, 80 years ago.
Steve, a discussion about power, we should also, because we always think about what's inside, but one of the issues that early on happened, a lot of the people in California were doing cannabis, is that they were not working with the power companies to get on the right rate schedules.
Right.
So now we created rate schedules. I work with, after 49 years of doing issue, but working with the power companies, and they had to create rate schedules just for different parts of the cannabis industry, because everybody thought they were ag. They go out and ag is on for what? An hour, 2 hours. Napa Valley ags are on for a couple hours and they're off. Well, you jump these guys on rate schedules, we're getting $30,000 and $40,000 a month power bills. So you need to be working with your locals and your states about getting the power companies to create rate schedules for the type of power you're using. Just a note, talk about cost and how you're spending. So it's a note.
Well, that's kind of a great lead-in, Sonny, to what I wanted to kind of talk about, is maybe some difference in a regional perspective in energy use and consumption. I'm based here in Colorado, but the weather here is a lot different than it is in Massachusetts, Noni. So, what are some regional concerns that you guys have up in the Northeast with related to consumption?
Definitely. So in Massachusetts, we have something baked into our licensing called the horticultural lighting power density. And I'll just echo something that I think is a common thread. We're really early on in how we approach energy so far as standardizations. The conversation in Massachusetts is really limited just to lighting, but I think all of us know that it's a bigger tapestry than that. So the HLPD is broken down by your canopy size in Massachusetts. If you're below a 10,000 square foot, you can enjoy a 50 watt per square foot allotment. If you're above that, it's 36. So that kind of invalidates even the idea of using HPS for a lot of these grows. And then also some of the LEDs on the market, you have to use them at a decreased interval. So, you know, it's definitely interesting. I think most of the small businesses that are operating in Massachusetts want to be greener. They want to look at things like reclaiming the moisture content and your dehumidification. They want to do things like regenerative agriculture, but it's kind of still the Wild West, even on the East Coast.
Okay. Yeah. Ryan, give us some perspective about some energy concerns that might be particular to your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I know Illinois has similar mandates for energy efficiency. They also ban outdoor cultivation. Michigan doesn't have those mandates for energy efficiency, but they do allow outdoor cultivation so long as the local municipality allows it, which is rare, unfortunately. So I think just sort of working with regulators and sort of disseminating the information that is coming out all the time, like Steve, the paper that you mentioned. I mean, those are the kind of the things that I think will get regulators' attentions. And at least in Michigan, we've had a lot of. It's actually been kind of a pleasure to work with our regulators and sort of inform how the industry is being shaped. They've been really responsive to sort of tailoring regulations that keep us from doing things that would benefit everybody. And they've made some pretty significant changes for us. So I think just making sure that conversation is kind of ongoing, kind of wherever you are, is really important.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, out of curiosity, would Illinois consider a greenhouse an indoor or an outdoor cultivation?
They do allow greenhouses, as I understand it, but I think there are some restrictions based upon sort of zoning and what your neighbors really care about. I haven't done much besides the application process in Illinois, so I don't want to pretend like I know everything about it.
Hey, well, so Sonny, why don't you give us a kind of an overview of what that looks like, West Coast concerns, and tie that into, since you're doing a lot of facilities and energy planning, what are some good first steps for a cultivation or an entrepreneur when they're evaluating a property or facility to grow on that location? What should they be keeping an eye out on?
Well, the first thing that's happening, and it happened early on, is we saw people buying old warehouses or buying property thinking, wow, I got a great bargain. I'm going to buy this piece of property, but they never took the time to find out, wow, do I have power? And do I have enough power? Do I have three-phase power? Do I only have single-phase power? And many of them make the major mistake of going out and they finally get the piece of property they want and go, okay, I see a power pole, I see wire, I'm good. And then they realize they need gas and they go, oh, there's a gas meter there, not realizing the gas meter's not large enough. The gas line is not large enough. The biggest problem or concerns that we've had, and we've done a lot of feasibility studies. In fact, I've actually had to fly out to Tennessee and Kentucky to help some guys out there because they're out buying property and didn't know the power was there. And so the key is to make sure you know that. Talk to a power company. Now, the problem sometimes the power company goes, yeah, we have power. That's all you're going to hear. They don't, what you don't know, and you have to delve into it by getting somebody like, our company or others to say, hey, I'm out here. What's out here? Do I have three-phase? Do I have enough power? And the problem we're running into now in Humboldt up there is that there's so many guys trying to get on the grid, but the wires and powers aren't big enough. We're working with the power company to build larger power lines and more bringing three-phase in. So that's the issue, making sure before you spend that money and buy a building and buy a property, do I have the power source I need for what I'm building? And do I have internet for my internet systems? Do I have gas that's going to have my gas system? So those are big concerns. And early on, guys were failing. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to bring the stuff they need in. And that just adds to your costs.
Right. Yeah, that's great feedback. I mean, people might not really just have that understanding that you've got to have a lot of those subcomponents, even if you are doing an outdoor cultivation. So that's good to know. Now, we've got thousands of cultivations of all stripes and sizes currently online. We're going to throw a question to say what they could do to immediately reduce some consumption or to start lowering their carbon footprint. Ash, what would you tell an existing cultivation they could be doing right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's also the easiest one to answer. The first thing you want to do to look at a low capital expenditure to improve the sustainable operative footprint of an already built cultivation facility is to look at envelope integrity. It's the easiest thing you can do, and it has a dramatic impact, and it's often overlooked.
Talk a little bit more about envelope integrity.
Sure. So regardless of how you're cultivating, whether it's going to be single or double tier indoor, or even a hybrid greenhouse, at the end of the day, your efficiencies come from your ability to control a consistent envelope and have homogeneity within the unit that you're growing in, whether it's individual rooms or a collective open space. So that really just means eliminating, to the best of your ability, any kind of ingress and atmospheric egress from that given facility's cultivation rooms. And there are a number of ways you can go about doing that don't cost too much money. You just have to have the knowledge of what tools are available in order to assess where you are at with envelope integrity at your facility at the current time, and then making the moves to start there, because that will make even if you don't replace anything in your facility, that move right along will guarantee that everything you've already done is going to be at its most efficient.
Okay, all right. Josh, what would you have anything to add for existing cultivations?
Yeah, we're diehard components of well-built buildings, tightly sealed. So Ash handled that one. The obvious next move is swapping out lighting. LED lights are a prescriptive rebate in a lot of places. You get a discount per light that you buy. It's the easiest thing that you could probably do. Another thing that we do, we're only doing newly built facilities at this point. We've stopped doing the retrofits because we're just too busy with new buildings. But adding a fogging system, a high pressure fogging system to a facility where you don't necessarily need to have this set temp of 74 with 49% humidity, we can now use humidity as part of the environmental controls. Early flower, we can let the room run warmer, bring up humidity levels with it. A high pressure fogging system is, depending on the size of the facility, $10,000 to $30,000 or something, and it can reduce operating costs significantly. And oftentimes people are running their rooms too dry and they don't even know it. So VPD control is a not a tiny step, it's a mid-sized step, but and that leads into smart controls, which is making sure that you don't have different systems running against one another. We try and lay out facilities where there is a single brain, and it is making sure that everything is working as it should and nothing is fighting each other and just wasting energy trying to hit two set points that aren't really able to be hit at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's it's pretty interesting having that central brain. That also sounds maybe to someone that's not in it day to day as something that could be capital intensive and part of a longer term plan to reduce your carbon footprint. Noni, you're working on your provisional licensing and you're in the middle of all of this in Massachusetts. Are you all putting together some type of 3-year plan to reduce your carbon footprint, or what does that look like longer term?
Yeah, definitely. I'll just loop back to some of those integrated systems. I think they're completely important, especially if you're at a larger grow. It's a no-brainer. That's definitely something you need to look at. Before moving to Massachusetts, I was the process engineer for the environmental systems at New York's largest medical marijuana grow. So I believe in it completely. We were using Hortimax, we've also used Argus. There's a couple of other ones on the market that are pretty cool. So far as what we're doing in Massachusetts, we're working with GS Thermal Solutions to have a fully integrated system with our liquid cooled LEDs. We also were very thoughtful in our locations to make sure that they were at municipalities that had great energy rates. Holyoke is hydroelectric powered, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, just also being open-minded to all the new technology that's coming online.
Right now, in Massachusetts uses a scoring mechanism from the Resource Innovation Institute. Is it Catch the Cannabis Score, Energy Score? Is that available to the Cannabis Power Score? Is that available to someone not in Massachusetts that would be interested in gauging their footprint?
I believe the Resource Innovation Institute is in a bunch of different states.
Okay.
I can't speak for more than Massachusetts. It definitely is.
I see some nodding from Josh. Would you have something to add to that?
Yeah, we work closely with RII. They, I believe, are contracted with the state of Massachusetts, so they've been like deeply involved. But they're taking studies. They study our greenhouses in Colorado. We've got projects in other places. They're studying any grow in the country that will share data.
Okay.
To create baselines and then to establish what they as a group deem as best practices and what is an efficient grow, what isn't, and then you compare your score to others to see how you can get a better score in the end.
Okay, that's pretty interesting resource. So we heard someone talk about the end of HPS lights as it pertains to some states that have stricter wattage controls. What do you all say about that long term? I'll open it up to anybody.
I mean, I'm happy to start. Our goal at Ceres Greenhouse is to create that indoor environment that most growers are used to with full sunlight. So lighting is truly supplementary for us. On a sunny day, even in the spring, we're over 2000 ppfd, which is where our light meter maxes out. A traditional indoor grow that's well lit is, I don't know, 1000, 1200 ppfd. What that allows us to do is even in the winter, we're at 200 ppfd or something. So now we can scale down the amount of lights we need in the greenhouse to begin with, and then we use them less often. So our mindset is, let's use the sunlight. It's the best and it's free. And then we'll add lighting. So worst case scenario, you're an indoor grow.
Right. Supplemental. Noni, not much HPS in Massachusetts. Is that what I understand?
Not much HPS in Massachusetts, yeah. It's especially if you're building a new facility. I don't think there are new facilities that have chosen HPS.
Right.
LEDs are the wave of the future. I think it'd be very unique to see any newly built facility not have LEDs, especially with all of the new kinds of LEDs. So yeah, I think HPS is done with.
Okay. So as people migrate to LEDs, I see from a standpoint, you can get some types of rebates for those. Is that district specific, or does anybody know of any kind of resources that our attendees could go to find out if they'd be eligible for that?
We run a rebate program. Every power company has their own rebate program, which for the cultivator out there, well, for us, we're working in many markets. It's a nightmare. But for the cultivator who knows their power company, I think it's probably as easy as an initial call to reach out and see if there are rebates available and to get a general feel. Our customers, we do that work for them. And we actually combine LEDs, a prescriptive rebate. That means there's a set cost per light. What we're doing, custom rebate. scenarios where we integrate the building, a highly sealed, highly insulated greenhouse, the HVAC system, the lighting, and the controller all as one unit, and we go for this big rebate package.
Okay.
We just did one in Massachusetts, and we're seeing 10% of the facility costs as a rebate as an average.
Nice, nice. Sonny, I saw you nodding your head. Did you have anything to add?
Well, the differences in California is not only do you have the power companies, but you have a lot of like the SMUD is a independent power company. You have Lodi Power, a lot of the small. So a lot of those, not only are they giving rebate programs because they want you, because they're all electrical. They don't have any gas involved. And the big push is to get off the gas and get on the electrical. So there's a lot of the companies like the irrigation companies like SMUD, Lodi Power saying, hey, we want you to go all electric. So we're going to help you with a rebate program. You want to have some solar because they'll give you some solar rebates. So there's a lot of things, as Josh said, you need to be speaking to your power companies or coming to consultants like us who design the stuff for these guys, because we do actual electrical and gas design and the power companies just sign our plan. So you need to work with those people that can help you. I tell everybody else, I don't do your work. You don't do ours. We're experts at what you are. Josh and Ash and Ryan, Adrian and Noni are all expert at what they do. Go to the experts. Talk to the experts. Don't try to go alone. Same thing with power. Go to the experts. Find out what's going on. Use the people that can help you reduce your costs and look at a lot of ways to keep that power cost down.
I think historically it's sort of one of the challenges of this coming from legacy black market, gray market, is that the power company was the enemy for a very long time for a lot of these cultivators, and so I think psychologically getting over that and being more proactive, like Josh mentioned, Sonny mentioned, being more proactive, reaching out to them, wanting to not only make sure you have enough power for what you want to do, but also talk early on about your plans and how you best can try to put that package together. Josh and Ceres has a great opportunity to do all of that together, sort of as a whole. But when you're putting a facility together and you're pulling different parts and pieces and LED and different types of HVAC systems and things and how it comes together, you either have to take ownership of that yourself or work with somebody that can help you take ownership of that. Otherwise, you end up too far down the path, because it takes a lot of time for these utilities to evaluate these. Particularly, LED is in general a pretty easy rebate to get almost across the country in all these different municipalities and utilities. But the HVAC systems are much more challenging to get them to buy into in a quick sort of fashion. And so if you wait to the last minute and go, okay, now I've sort of made my decision on what I'm going to do, and then you reach out to the utility company, it's like, yeah, sure, we'll get you a response back in 4 to 6 weeks, or 2 to 4 months, or whatever it is, depending on the particular utility. And so the timing of that is really important to get them involved early.
And Adrian, to add to that, your point's well taken. They're swamp busy. Many of the power companies have pulled back on, what they're doing, what they want to. That's why, that's why we wrote and created applicant design back in 1995, because the power companies could not keep up with the demand of what's going on. And now with cannabis, it's more of a demand. I mean, we're designing jobs in 4 to 6 months, power ready to go. The power companies are taking 12 to 16 to 18 months to design same things, and we're being able to do all the work for them. But that also includes helping them get on the right rate schedule, helping them to make sure they got rebate programs and what's available for them. So yes, the power companies are there. I would say use, this group of guys here and ladies here, use what we have. NCIA has a lot of resources. Use that resources as well as local people that can help, because the power companies are going to give you maybe a 1-sentence answer, and you need more than that sometimes. You need to delve into it. Josh can tell you, I'm sure you get into a lot of times where you're getting a part answer, not the complete answer. And they're just manpower short. They can't get the answers you want. It could take 6 months to get the answer you want instead of 2 weeks or 24 hours.
I would like to add that don't wait for an answer. Be really educationally aggressive. Power companies want to cut checks for rebates, especially for cannabis. And understand that even now, there are utility companies out there that haven't fully formed their program. They're outsourcing their programs, and they're looking for data and help to form these programs. My team at GrowRay went through a process just to show you guys a real-world example of a fairly extreme version of this. There's a utility, it's all by utility company. There's a utility company in Illinois that we were able to get a $1.2 million rebate for our client in Southern Illinois for a very large cannabis cultivation facility. That incorporated predominantly LED, but also the HVAC. And it paid for the majority, over 60% of the total project cost. Okay, significant numbers. Now, the reason we're able to get that is not because we went to the website and just took what they had on there at face value. We got really aggressive and showed these guys the economic case for actually allowing latitude in the program to cut a bigger check and how it impacted both client and the utility company itself. So don't forget that this nascent phase we're in provides opportunities for that educational aggressiveness so you can get what you want and help the utility company at the same time. So think outside the box when it comes to this stuff. We've done it in Michigan, we've done it in Illinois and other states too, where we did not accept the standard custom rebate per LED, legacy versus new. And we actually went in there and said, let's rethink this. We have data to share with you. This can help both of us. And we found more than half the time that the utility company is willing to play ball if it helps their bottom line. You can conclusively show it.
And Ash, and I totally agree. I mean, that's what we've had to do with all the ones we're working with. And that push also means rate schedule. Don't just assume, hey, take whatever rate schedule they have, which one's the best for us. We didn't. I mean, when you do this for so many years, you know where to go talk to people. Say, hey, you know what? You said this is what I got available. No, we need to create a rate schedule that meets the need of the customer, which in this world is the cannabis people. What rate schedule meets the usage on the other end? And after a lot of pushing, they all said, okay, let's start creating rate schedules that meet the usage of the cannabis. Not just grower, maybe it's the manufacturer, maybe it's the guy doing different parts, but create that rate schedule that helps their bottom line too. It helps on both sides. So you got to be aggressive.
Don't take yes for an answer, get a better yes.
No. Ash, my bottom of my email says, no is not an answer. Yes is the answer. Now, what's the question? Right. That's how you got to ask it.
Yeah.
I love the educational aggressive component to that. That's really great.
You have to be. You have to be. It's not developed in any of these utilities out there. I mean, Ash, both of you guys hit it right on the head. Like it does not exist for the majority of the utilities across the country. This program, and even if they have one, they don't have enough data to prove it out, like Ash described there. So
and that starts, Steve, educating them early on, because many of them, like we're running into up the Humboldt area, they're just it's business as usual. And you say, I want power, and they go, sorry, you haven't got enough power for you. So you say, okay, I go home. No, you don't go home. That's why you have to do feasibility studies. That's why you have to check ahead of time what power is available and how do we get the power we want for our product. We need to be the aggressors. We need to be the one educating them and telling what we want. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, so Ryan, we've spent a little time and got some great feedback on power rebates for primarily indoor and potentially greenhouse. We know outdoor and sun grown is obviously less power intensive, but there have got to be some things that an outdoor cultivation can do to lower their impact or their energy consumption. What would you tell our guests today about that?
The first thing I would look at is site selection. So just being able to grow outdoor is huge, but also sort of think about where your supply chains sort of end. So we're in the southern end of Michigan's fruit belt. So we can piggyback on all of that sort of existing agriculture infrastructure. We don't have to, if I need fertilizer or I need some other input, I can go to our supplier is like 400 yards away. So it really helps. I'm not ordering pallets of stuff from Chicago or Detroit. But then I'd also look at sort of your other, I mean, outdoor is outdoor. I mean, we don't have a lot of energy use for our plants outdoors, but we got to make those plants. So, you know, if we have to have a bunch of mothers and nursery space to produce 20,000 plants for outside, that's a pretty significant indoor space, and with all the inputs associated with that. So getting to a seed-based production, I think, is really important. We're also looking at R&D for all the other things we have to do. You know, we grow these big plants, and then what do we do after we harvest them? So drying is sort of the traditional way to do that sort of post-harvest processing, but that doesn't mean it's the best way. And so this last year we did a big R&D project with an industrial partner, looking at we developed a high throughput freezing process, just cryogenically freeze everything coming off the field. And those initial numbers were really promising, looking at both the sort of the capital costs and labor, and the big thing was the value retention in the flower. So you think about, you know, we're all talking about pounds, but it's especially for outdoor, when we're sort of already assuming everything is going to go to processing. We're not really growing pounds of flower. We're growing some volume of THC, CBD, terpenes, and keeping as much of that as possible from the point that the plant is cut to the point that it's a usable product that we can sell on is really important. So we're trying to optimize sort of every step in that chain and averaging down sort of the overall impact of our operations.
Very, very nice. Well, so we'll probably take some time here in a couple minutes to field some questions from our guests today. So I want to wrap up and just kind of ask what we hear on a lot and get your all's perspectives of what you think the future of cannabis cultivation market looks like as we progress toward federal legalization. What types of impacts and changes do you see that happen? We'll kick that off with Ash.
Sure, it's a great question. So we look at this anticipatorily, and we have some projects we're working on in the EU right now that we kind of use as guideposts because of the EU GMP certification requirements. We expect those to be redundant here pending federal legalization. And that has a lot to do with hygiene, workflow, really having the type of facility that can guarantee the type of cleanliness, lack of contamination that is pharma grade. Obviously, that's a huge step, many large steps away from the kind of pre-legal ways of growing that entered the marketplace in the beginning, when huge margins could hide those types of, call them dirty business practices and suboptimal, hygienically questionable cultivation practices. So we see that coming quickly. And the good news is adopting measures that adhere to those standards may have a slight increase in initial CapEx, but they have the benefit of long-term enhancement of the OpEx, lowering of OpEx, quality of product, consistency of production. So they model out economically now in the current environment. So getting ahead of that curve is a great business case to be made regardless of letting the government decide when it's time to become efficient, in my opinion.
Got it. Ash, you see you nodding your head. Do you have any follow-up? Ash, I thought that was a great thought.
We do something very similar. We assume there will be some sort of federal legalization in the next few years, and potentially we're exporting or importing products some years after that. And with that being said, if you're going to spend $4, $8, $12 million on a facility right now, we are designing it based on EU GMP regulations and GACP, which is Good Agricultural and Collection Practices. We can pressurize our rooms to make sure the airflow is good. And it's with this mindset of a consistent quality product always. We would hate to see someone build something out kind of half-assed at this point. And in 3 years, it's not a viable facility and it needs a full either rebuild or something. And so we're thinking about that now.
Adrian, any thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of the same stuff from those two gentlemen. I mean, I want to also make sure we don't lose sight of, we're talking a lot about efficiency and, and wringing every bit out. I mean, to us, it's really about doing every bit that you can with that energy that you use. So the more that you can get out of it from a quality, quantity, consistency type perspective is really the most important, and doing every bit that you can with what you've got. And so, for us, that means 24-hour VPD control and really being able to control, not have swings in temperature and humidity throughout the day from day to night, particularly, not have microclimates in your space, things like that. But then, yeah, as the market compresses, there's consolidations or different, competition at scale. The EU GMP model, I think, is really the right one to focus on, knowing that FDA is going to be involved in this process, probably sooner than later. And just look, take a look at your facility and compare that to what an FDA regulated facility actually looks like, whether it be pharmaceutical or, bottling facilities or other food production plants, things like that, and the regulations that are required around that. But as we start to hone in on this, that's where that efficiency piece really does come into play, as far as the smaller margins and compression goes, to make sure that you're able to produce at a level that's competitive in the marketplace, and you can still push. You're not taking a hit on your quality or quantity or consistency in an effort to reduce your operating costs, because they really are all very, very important. But if you're able to produce more with that same energy input, you're going to be able to make more money. And in the interim, it's very important to really try to stretch that as best you can.
And if you don't know what VPD is, stop writing checks and call Adrian right away.
Yeah, vapor pressure deficit. And I love that Ryan brought up. We haven't already talked about curing and post harvest really in this at all. And that's a whole. We could talk about. We've got an hour-long webinar up on YouTube specifically about curing, and the amount of how overlooked it is in general, and how much money can be made in the process by a controlled cure, whether it's from outdoor product or indoor product or greenhouse product. It's an extreme, really think about it as one of the choke points of your facility, where everything comes back through. You've got all these flower rooms or flowering spaces and things, or acres and acres of outdoor, and then everything needs to come through some sort of a drying, curing type process. So there's obviously energy use and consumption and things around that, but figuring out how to do that in the most efficient, I don't mean energy efficient way, but the best possible way to maintain terpene preservation, or secondary, other secondary metabolites and things, is super important to your profitability and bottom line.
Well, sadly, they could have given us a 4-hour session, and I bet we would have filled every bit of time with it. I did want to get to one question that came from our attendees today, and it goes back to the big conversation we had about rebates. How can we approach a discourse with a utility supplier in a market where LED and high efficiency rebates are not already employed? And their particular example, I'm assuming, is because they are in Illinois.
Yeah, it depends on where you're at in Illinois. Ash mentioned a project he worked on in Southern Illinois. I know in Northern Illinois, ComEd is very, very active and interested in providing incentives. So I would be proactive in getting in touch with them, and probably some of us here can help connect through with that. But there's a lot of interest in Illinois, particularly around the usage and being able to provide the right type of incentives.
Show comps. It's essentially a utility version of Keeping Up with the Joneses. There are many examples in Illinois right now. You mentioned Northern Illinois. In South and Central Illinois, you have Ameren, and Ameren recently adopted a very aggressive LED and energy efficiency rebate program, whereas before it didn't exist. The ways they went about doing so are to look at, obviously, the first thing you do is mitigate risk by looking at what other companies are doing. So I would suggest putting together a portfolio of comps that show what other types of rebates similarly situated companies are offering, why, and what the benefits are to the rebate companies. And you can reach out to me directly, ash@growray.com, if you want kind of a primer on how I would go about that in a detailed way. Happy to help.
Hey, very good. Well, I'm sorry, we are at the top of our hour. We've got a couple of questions coming in. We're going to be sure to get those answered to you guys, but it's been a very quick 60 minutes. It's been great to talk with so many expert people who are all working toward having safe access to cannabis for all who want it. So thank you, guys. I'm going to say goodbye and give it back over to our main coordinator, Brian. Thank you all and have a great St. Patrick's Day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Steve.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Steve, once again for moderating this panel of esteemed experts, and to all the members of our cultivation committee for taking the time out of their busy cultivation schedules to join Steve on today's fantastic panel. We did see a number of questions come in right at the end of our Q&A segment. So do note that we'll be continuing the conversation where we post our webinar recording in our members only community platform, NCIA Connect. So if you're not one of the, if you're a non-member currently participating in today's session, please do consider joining NCIA as soon as possible following the wrap of today's broadcast. I'll be mentioning a few key items on that front in a few moments. And then stay on the lookout for the video recording of today's session first to be posted there, where we'll tag all of the panelists to extend today's conversation. And then please do note that you'll all receive a PDF version of today's presentation that has this contact information slide as well, so you can directly follow up with any of the panelists directly. We'd love for you to stick around for just a few moments while we've got your attention as we transition into the outro of today's segment. So feel free to interact with each other and the panelists directly inside of our chat room as we close out today's program. Okay, well, first off, immediately following today's session, we'll be showcasing yet another NCIA Committee Insights program entitled No Time to Waste, Putting Equity First in the Mid-Atlantic Region. With the Mid-Atlantic region poised to become the next region to ride the wave of cannabis legalization, this is a timely conversation to help those in the area understand what demands they should be making with their lawmakers, all from the perspectives of those who've come before us in different markets and had these type of battles before. Led by members of NCIA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, this panel will discuss the key positions that all activists should dig their heels in to ensure cannabis legislation in the Mid-Atlantic region is as equitable as possible. As with all of our Industry Essentials educational webinars, this session is free for all current NCIA members and only $15 for non-members interested in participating. However, if you're one of the non-members participating in today's session, feel free to utilize the code NCIA 100 that I'm going to pop into the chat room as well for a complimentary ticket to show our gratitude for your attendance in today's session. And then please do note that we currently have over 9 webinars scheduled between now and the start of April, which are all free for current NCIA members. So if you are one of those few non-members participating in today's session, please activate your membership now to gain access to all of these sessions, as well as all the other amazing benefits offered through membership with NCIA. Or you can continue to purchase those discounted passes to continue engaging with all this invaluable content prior to taking the plunge on an annual commitment of membership. All right. And with that, thank you all so much for participating in another NCIA Industry Essentials educational webinar. Thank you. Huge thank you once again to all the members of NCIA's Cannabis Cultivation Committee for presenting today's session, along with all of our audience members, and most importantly, our member businesses, which make our work possible each and every day. Please complete the attendee survey after leaving the meeting room. This will grant you immediate access to our presentation file. And as noted, please note that all NCIA members receive exclusive 30-day access to a formatted video recording that'll first be posted in our members-only community platform, NCIA Connect. We'll leave you all with this end of event credit sequence highlighting the 20+ member businesses that make up the Cultivation Committee, as well as all those members that participated in this afternoon's session. If you don't see your company listed here, that means you need to head to thecannabisindustry.org/join following today's program to join the movement for a responsible and equitable cannabis industry. Switch things up a bit. We'll showcase some lo-fi audio stylings by yours truly. Enjoy, and we hope to see you later this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern for our next Committee Insights session. Thank you so much. We'll see you then.